In Brooklyn, Sophia Bennett wakes up before the sun to support a world that does not see her. Amid deleted reports and a mantra inherited from her father, she hides a thread of truth in the footer of each work, until a keen eye changes everything. The digital clock on Sophia Bennett's desk read 5:45 when the alarm went off. 15 minutes earlier than necessary, as always. She enjoyed those extra moments when the small apartment in Brooklyn was still quiet and the city began to wake up. It was the only time of day that truly belonged to her. Sophia reached out and turned off the alarm. The one-bedroom apartment was not luxurious, but it was her little haven of peace. On the walls, there were a few photos in simple frames. Her father smiling by a lake, holding a fish, her at her university graduation, and a faded photo of the entire family, before debt consumed everything. In the bathroom, she faced her reflection as she brushed her teeth. At 34, Sophia had keen brown eyes that reflected an intelligence that rarely received recognition. Her dark brown hair was tied in an impeccable bun, as dictated by the unwritten code of Wall Street. One more day, she murmured to herself, a daily ritual that worked as a mantra. 20 minutes later, she was on the street, holding her black coffee in a paper cup, walking through the crowd of New York. The subway was crowded as always, but Sophia had mastered the art of becoming practically invisible, gliding through the hasty bodies with a skill developed over the years. When she emerged at the station near the financial district, the sky was overcast. The glass and steel skyscrapers stood tall, reflecting the gray clouds. Sophia looked up for a moment, feeling tiny, like a grain of sand before the ocean. The building of Archer and Ward Advisors was one of the most imposing on the street. The polished marble of the lobby gleamed under the artificial lights. The security guard waved at Sophia with familiarity. She had been working there for 7 years, long enough to be recognized, but not enough to be truly valued. "Good morning, Thomas," she greeted with a genuine smile. "Good morning, Miss Bennett. Arriving early as always." Sophia nodded and headed to the elevator. There was no one on the 12th floor when she arrived, just as she preferred. She turned on the lights and booted up her computer, taking advantage of the tranquility to review the day's tasks. As Ethan Ward's executive assistant, her to-do list never seemed to shrink. There were reports to finish, data to analyze, meetings to schedule. The truth is, Sophia wasn't just an assistant. She was the backbone that supported much of the operations attributed to Ethan. When her boss arrived at 8:40 a.m., she had already reviewed 3 proposals, corrected a significant error in a cash flow spreadsheet, and prepared a draft for the 10 a.m. meeting. "Good morning, Sophia," Ethan greeted, handing her his expensive coat without actually looking her in the eyes. "Do we have coffee?" "On your desk, Mr. Ward. I just left it there, along with the ESG project reports you asked for." Ethan Ward was the kind of man who filled a room with his presence. Tall, with gray hair at the temples that gave him an air of wisdom, and a practiced smile that made clients and colleagues trust him instantly. At 45, he was one of the most respected advisors in the firm, known for his ability to win over important clients and for his seemingly innovative vision. What few people knew was that much of this vision came directly from Sophia's methodical and creative mind. "Great, great," he murmured distractedly, already walking to his office. "Oh, and don't forget I need that material on the new ESG classification system for tomorrow. Financial Leaders is preparing a special report." Sophia nodded, knowing that this meant another night working late. "I've already started preparing it, sir." "Excellent. That's why you're my #1 assistant," he said with an automatic smile before closing his office door. Sophia sighed, remembering she was his only assistant. Those little everyday facades had become so common that she barely noticed them anymore. As she organized the day's schedule, her gaze fell on the photo of her father, which she kept discreetly next to the monitor. Robert Bennett had been a simple but honest man, a small investor who believed in the financial system until the day he lost everything to a scheme of hidden fees from a local bank. The financial collapse led to the collapse of his health, and the heart attack at 58 left Sophia alone in the world. "Truth shall spring out of the earth, even if they try to bury it," he used to say, quoting his favorite song. This phrase had become Sophia's silent mantra, a promise she carried in her heart as she navigated the ruthless world of Wall Street. In the afternoon, Sophia was finalizing the presentation on ESG, environmental, social, and governance, investments that Ethan would present as his own creation. It was meticulous work she had researched for weeks, developing a model that could balance solid financial returns with genuine social impact. As she was entering the final data, she heard Ethan's voice echoing from the adjacent meeting room. He was speaking with some company directors. "Yes, this new ESG model is revolutionary," he said confidently. "I believe it will redefine how we think about sustainable investments." Sophia bit her lip, continuing her work in silence. She was already used to hearing Ethan talk about his ideas, when in fact they were concepts she had explained to him hours earlier. "Ward, you might be right," replied a voice Sophia recognized as that of Larry Archer, a senior partner. "Financial Leaders is looking for a face for their special edition on ESG visionaries. If this model is as good as it seems, you could be on the cover." Sophia could practically feel Ethan's ambition igniting with those words. When the meeting ended and the executives left, he came directly to her desk, his eyes shining with anticipation. "Sophia, we need this presentation to be absolutely perfect. I want all the data, all the charts, all the projections. This is our chance." She noticed how he used "our," although she knew that if the project succeeded, it would be only his chance. "I'm almost done, Mr. Ward. I just need to adjust a few numbers and—" "Great, great," he interrupted, not really listening. "I want it on my desk by 7 p.m. today. I'll review it and send it to the press tonight." As Ethan walked away, Sophia turned back to her work with a resigned sigh. Her usual system was to add a small, discreet digital signature at the footer of each document she produced. Nothing obvious, just her full name and a unique hash code that served as her personal watermark. It wasn't vanity. It was a quiet way to remind herself that, regardless of who took the credit, that work bore her essence. It was almost 8 p.m. when Sophia finally sent the complete presentation to Ethan's email. Her eyes burned after hours staring at the computer screen, but the result was worth the effort. The strategy she had developed was genuinely innovative, a system that not only met ESG criteria but also provided a clear path to consistent returns. Her phone rang as she was putting away her belongings to leave. "Sophia, I received the presentation," Ethan said. "It looks good, but I need a few changes. I'm emailing you. Can you do it today?" She closed her eyes for a moment, swallowing her frustration. "Of course, Mr. Ward. I'll do it right now." The changes were minimal, cosmetic adjustments to the font on some slides, a reorganization of charts. Nothing substantive to justify the urgency, just Ethan's desire to exert control. While implementing the changes, Sophia wondered, not for the first time, why she continued in this cycle. The answer came in the form of her father's photo looking at her. She needed the salary, the stability, and, more importantly, there was a part of her that still believed that one day the truth would blossom. After finalizing the changes, Sophia sent the new version and shut down the computer. It was late, and the office was practically empty. As she left, she didn't realize that Ethan, in his rush to send the material to the press, hadn't checked if the footer still contained her discreet digital signature. It was a small, almost insignificant mistake, but it would change everything. The next morning, a gray and rainy Wednesday, Sophia arrived at the office to find an atmosphere of unusual excitement. People were speaking in low voices, and Ethan seemed especially animated, circulating among colleagues with a triumphant smile. "Sophia," he called out when he saw her. The presentation was a success. The financial leaders loved the material. They are planning a press conference for next week. We need to prepare. She nodded, feeling that familiar twinge of resignation. "Congratulations, Mr. Ward. I'm glad it was well received." Yes. Prepare a list of possible questions and answers for me, will you? I want to be ready for anything they throw." The rest of the day passed in a whirlwind of activities. Sophia worked diligently behind the scenes, organizing the logistics of the conference, preparing additional materials, while Ethan received congratulations from all sides. In the late afternoon, She was finalizing some documents when an imposing figure approached her desk. It was Henry Whitaker, one of the firm's oldest and most respected clients. At 62 years old, with completely white hair and a posture that inspired respect, Whitaker was known for his unwavering integrity and keen insight. "Miss Bennet?" he asked gently. Sophia looked up, surprised. Clients rarely addressed her directly. "Yes, Mr. Whitaker. How can I help you?" "I just received copies of the ESG presentation that will be discussed at the meeting," he said, placing a folder on her desk. "I would like to ask some questions about the financial model presented. Do you have a few minutes?" Confused, Sophia nodded. "Of course, sir. But perhaps Mr. Ward could explain it better." "Actually," Whitaker interrupted with a gentle smile, "I noticed something interesting at the bottom of the documents. Your name, Sophia Bennet, along with a hash code. I assume this is some kind of digital signature." Sophia's heart raced. She didn't expect anyone to notice such a small detail. "It's just an internal organization system I use." Whitaker watched her for a long moment, his piercing blue eyes seeming to see beyond her words. "I see. Well, I'm particularly interested in this section on the cash flow adjusted for social risk. It's quite an innovative approach." Sophia hesitated. It was one of the most complex parts of the model, something she had developed after weeks of research. Ethan barely understood the details. "Can we talk in a more private place?" Whitaker suggested, noticing her hesitation. Minutes later, they were in a small meeting room. To Sophia's surprise, Whitaker closed the door and got straight to the point. "Miss Bennet, I've worked in this market for over 4 decades. I know how to recognize a brilliant mind when I see one. This model wasn't created by Ethan Ward, was it?" Sophia felt as if the air had been sucked out of the room. Her hands trembled slightly as she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "Mr. Whitaker, Don't worry," he said kindly. "I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm here because I believe in giving credit where it's due." Something about the way he looked at her, with a mixture of respect and paternal understanding, made Sophia's defenses begin to crumble. "I assist Mr. Ward with his projects," she said cautiously. "Assist?" Whitaker raised an eyebrow. "Or create?" The silence that followed was answer enough. Whitaker sighed, leaning forward. "Daughter, I've seen a lot in this market. I know when someone is the mastermind behind the curtains. Tell me how you developed this model." And so, for the first time in years, Sophia spoke openly about her work. She explained how she had identified gaps in the existing ESG models, how she had integrated social metrics with traditional financial projections, how each line of that presentation carried hours of her thought and dedication. Whitaker listened attentively, asking insightful questions that revealed his own deep understanding of the subject. When she finished, he nodded in approval. "It's brilliant, and it's not his," he concluded. Then, with a direct look into her eyes, he added, "One day, you will have to decide whether you accept the shadow or step into the light." Those words struck Sophia like lightning. They reminded her of her father, of his simple belief in the truth. For years, she had been content to remain in the shadows, convincing herself that it was the safest, most prudent path. "Think about it," Whitaker said, standing up. "The press conference will be next week. I'll be there." When Sophia returned to her desk, she felt different. Whitaker's words echoed in her mind, mingling with memories of her father. She looked at his photo and could almost hear him say, "Truth will flourish from the earth, even if they try to bury it." The night before the press conference, Sophia couldn't sleep. After hours of tossing and turning in bed, she dressed and went up to the rooftop of her building. It was a quiet place where she used to think when her mind was too restless. The city stretched out before her, a sea of lights shining in the darkness. The cold autumn wind cut across her face, but it was a welcome discomfort compared to the storm inside her. "Father," she murmured to the starry sky, "I don't know if I have the courage. I've spent so long being invisible that I don't know if I can endure the spotlight." Tears began to form in her eyes. "But you always said that truth would flourish from the earth. Show me what to do." It was a short prayer, almost a whisper lost in the city's wind. But at that moment, Sophia felt a clarity she hadn't experienced in years. It wasn't about the spotlight or recognition. It was about integrity, about honoring her father's memory, about being true to herself. Back in the apartment, she sat at the kitchen table and began preparing detailed notes on every aspect of the ESG model. If she were questioned, when she was questioned, she would be ready. The big day had arrived. The Archer and Ward auditorium was filled with journalists, cameras, and executives from the financial sector. Sophia had arrived early, as always, ensuring everything was impeccable for the presentation. Ethan was radiant in his custom-made Italian suit, mingling with important guests with his usual charm. Sophia remained backstage, organizing the final details, her heart pounding against her ribs. When she spotted Henry Whittaker entering the auditorium, she felt a mix of apprehension and relief. He greeted her with a discreet nod, taking his place in the front row. At exactly 10 o'clock, Larry Archer took the stage to introduce Ethan, speaking about innovative vision and thought leadership. Sophia watched from the last row, where assistants and lower-level employees usually sat today. Ethan took the stage with his usual confidence, thanking everyone for their presence. He began the presentation with great eloquence, talking about the importance of ESG investments in the contemporary world. Everything was going as planned until it reached the technical part. A journalist from Financial Leaders raised his hand. "Mr. Ward, your thesis is truly innovative," he said. "Could you elaborate on the flow modeling that balances risk and social impact? It's an approach we've never seen before." Ethan smiled, but Sophia noticed the hesitation in his eyes. He began to respond with generalities, avoiding the technical details that he clearly didn't master. It was at that moment that Henry Whittaker raised his hand. "Excuse me," he said, his calm yet firm voice echoing through the auditorium. "Perhaps Miss Bennett can answer that question. After all, it was her name I found in the footer of the report." An absolute silence took over the room. All eyes turned to Sophia, sitting discreetly at the back. Ethan visibly paled, but tried to maintain his composure. "Oh, of course, Sophia just assisted in organizing the material." "No, Mr. Ward," Whittaker interrupted firmly. "She didn't just organize. She built it." The journalists, sensing a story, immediately began to ask questions. Who was Sophia Bennett? What was her role in the development of the model? Why was her name on the document? Sophia felt as if the world were moving in slow motion as she got up from her seat. Her legs felt like jelly as she walked down the central aisle, all eyes fixed on her. When she reached the stage, the warm spotlight lights momentarily blinded her. Ethan whispered fiercely, "What do you think you are doing?" Sophia took a deep breath. For the first time in years, her voice didn't tremble as she spoke. "My name is Sophia Bennett. I have been Mr. Ward's executive assistant for 7 years. And yes, I developed the model being presented today." A buzz ran through the room. Sophia continued, her voice gaining strength with every word. "I can explain in detail how the model works, how it integrates social impact metrics with traditional financial analysis, and how we project risk-adjusted returns." A journalist pointed to the screen where the presentation was still displayed. "Your name is indeed in the footer, along with a hash code. What does that mean?" Sophia explained her digital signature system, which she used in all the documents she produced. As she spoke, she noticed Ethan had withdrawn to a corner of the stage, his face a mask of restrained fury and humiliation. For a full hour, Sophia answered technical questions with a clarity and depth that impressed even the most skeptical journalists. When she finished, the auditorium erupted in applause. Henry Whittaker was the first to stand up, a smile of approval on his wrinkled face. In the days that followed, the story exploded in the financial world. Financial Leaders, instead of the planned article about Ethan, published a cover story titled, "The Mind Behind the Myth, the Assistant Who Redefined ESG on Wall Street." A week later, Sophia was sitting in Larry Archer's office. After an internal investigation, the firm discovered it wasn't the first time Ethan had taken credit for the work of subordinates. He had been removed, and a restructuring was underway. "Miss Bennett," said Archer, "we would like to offer you a position as a junior advisor, focusing on ESG strategies. Your work is exceptional, and we need minds like yours leading projects, not just assisting. Sophia felt a wave of emotion rushing through her body. Thank you, Mr. Archer. I accept. As she left the office, she found Henry Whitaker waiting in the hallway. I heard the good news, he said with a smile. Congratulations. Thank you, Mr. Whitaker, for everything. He waved it off. Don't thank me. You did the work. I just helped the truth to blossom. Sophia smiled, recognizing the echo of her father's words. My father used to say something similar. The truth will blossom from the earth, even if they try to bury it. A wise man, your father, Whitaker replied, and he would be very proud today. That night, Sophia returned to the rooftop of her building. The city seemed different now, no longer intimidating, but full of possibilities. The lights shone like fallen stars, and the wind seemed to whisper promises. Looking at the sky, she smiled. The truth has blossomed, Father, and it will continue to blossom. In a world where numbers defined destinies and fame was built on appearances, Sophia had discovered that true wealth was not in the spotlight, but in the courage to remain true to the truth. Her small digital signature, almost invisible at the bottom of a document, had become the seed of justice. And this, she realized, was worth more than any headline or annual bonus could ever offer.